Good morning, folks. It's Diamond with the Oppenheimer Ranch Project, Magnetic Reversal News, and Shinrin Yoku, bringing you a climate change update Wednesday, October 27th, around 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time, 2021. Now, I'm sure many of you are wondering, what is COP26? Well, today will be your quick guide to the United Nations Climate Change Summit in Glasgow. Now, let's just give you a general overview what COP26 is. It is the annual United Nations meeting of the 197 countries that have agreed to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. It was originally adopted in 1992, and subsequently, since then, we found out that even if all nations were to stand up to their side of the bargain, it would have zero effect on the climate. Now, what does COP26 stand for? Well, it stands for lunacy. 197 countries burning billions of tons of fossil fuels to get to a place to talk about how to stop burning fossil fuels. Complete lunacy. Now, the more lunacy is that the scientists that the people at COP26 listen to are the very scientists that 10 years ago told us there would be no more snow. And what we've seen in the last 3 years is some of the most record-breaking snowstorms in modern history, including the one that just happened, well, just days ago. The atmospheric river dumped more snow across Tahoe than ever before in recorded history. On October 26th at 1 p.m., the atmospheric river last week pushed snow totals to 4 feet in the central Nevada. That's more snow for October than many people have seen in their lifetimes. Donner Summit just broke its record for the most precipitation in the month of October. These are the same scientists that told us there would never be rain in the West, a perpetual drought, according to a tweet from the UC Berkeley Central Snow Lab. Donner Summit just broke its record for the most precipitation in the month of October. 16 inches in a single month at Donner Summit. So what are they actually talking about at COP26? Well, they certainly will be fear-mongering about the devastating effects of climate change. Now, by using the term climate change, it could mean anything. But in this case, it means, well, flooding in Massachusetts and 500,000 people without power currently in that tiny little state. There's only 2.5 million customers, and 1/5 of the customers in Massachusetts currently have no power. Why aren't they talking about infrastructure? No, they're talking about taxing you for plant food. And if we tax you enough for plant food, then maybe less power will go out in Massachusetts, perhaps. Yeah, it's complete nonsense. A bunch of rich people spending billions of dollars and burning tons of fossil fuels, well, to talk about how they can control your lives more. And the lies are insane. Let's just read some of this. With climate change leading the cause of weather disasters, well, of course, the climate is the leading cause of weather. That's ridiculous. It's a third grade sentence that anyone can write that means nothing. But what they're trying to insinuate is it's your fault because it's your fault that there's climate change. It's almost disgusting, this world we live in. There is not a single scientist that has critical thinking skills that believes any of this. And they just came out with a new consensus saying that 99% of scientists believe this gobbledygook. The people and the scientists at COP26 think that since 1970, weather disasters have been increasing. If you ask any scientist in any field, scientists that study hurricanes will tell you they're decreasing. Scientists that study wildfires will tell you they're decreasing, unless they're paid for by these people. Then they lie. Well, luckily, there is a large number of scientists, including myself, that are gathering steam. And we have been for over a decade. They've continued to attack us, but we continue to fight back. And yesterday, I received this memo, and I'm going to be sharing it with everyone today. And I implore you to go over to our Patreon page and read the entire memo. It's 17 pages. And the title is Climate Fraud at COP26. And the letter read, Dear friends and colleagues, today the following message has been sent to the chairman of the IPCC, the organizers of COP26, and a number of world leaders and a number of politicians. They were all addressed personally. Please distribute this in your own network. And so I will share you the report coming from the Irish Climate Science Forum, ironically, directly next door to COP26, where it's occurring. And these scientists, they're not having any of it. The attention is to Dr. Sung Lee, the chair of the IPCC. There's his address if you want to send him a letter yourself. Now, the critique of AR6 WG1 summary for policymakers. The AR6 WG1 summary for policymakers is what they're using at COP26 to set the policy of the future. You know, no more fossil fuels, prolonged blackouts, and things like that. And these are pressing issues because it is obvious what's happening. And the letter goes on, addressed to Dr. Lee, the head of the IPCC, that we have now carried out an interim review of the AR6 WG1 summary for policymakers and believe it misrepresents the latest objective climate science in 6 key areas. Number 1, it is not unequivocal that human influence alone has warmed the planet. The observed modest warming of less than 1 degree C since 1850 to 1900 has occurred through some as yet unresolved combination of anthropogenic and natural influences. Number 2, the new hockey stick graph, figure SP1, here. When analyzed in detail, it's a concoction of disparate indicators from various time periods over the last 2,000 years. Way to go, Michael Mann. Which together fail to recognize the intervening well-established temperature variability. For example, of the Roman and medieval warming periods and of the Little Ice Age. Number 3, the incidence of so-called extreme weather events is erroneously misrepresented in the SPM compared to the more accurate depictions in the draft minor report, which later identify no statistically significant trends in many categories over time. Let me repeat that. The incidence of so-called extreme weather is identified with no statistical significant trends in many categories over time. Developments in the cryosphere, this is the ice on Earth, are also misrepresented in the SPM, particularly noting that there has been virtually no trend in Arctic sea ice in the last 15 years, and the actual trend is increasing ice over the last decade, the exact opposite of what they represent. The exact opposite. Number 5, likewise, developments in the ocean are erroneously misrepresented in the SPM. In particular, the likely modest sea level rise to 2100 does not point to any climate crisis. In fact, it's just a few millimeters a year. But that's not what you hear on the media. The CMIP6 climate models are even more sensitive than the already oversensitive CMIP model of AR5 and ignore peer-reviewed scientific evidence of low climate sensitivity. Yes, natural climate variability. The models lead to invalid conclusions on carbon budgets, and the likely global temperature increase to 2100 does not indicate a climate crisis based on observed data. This is nonsense. These concerns are summarized in the table overleaf and are then analyzed in more detail in the 17 pages that follow. And I hope you would all take some time to look at all 17 pages. They're all linked below, and just take your time and move through them. They're all written in very plain English. So you can get a grip on the fraud that's happening at COP26. Hope you got something out of the video. Links to the Patreon page, which I've made public for everyone to go grab. You don't have to be a Patreon to come over here. If you like what we've produced and we've given you here, consider becoming a Patreon. We would appreciate that. Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance in a dystopian world where 197 countries are burning fossil fuels to meet to discuss fake news. Yes, propaganda, and that's a boom to knowledge. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Share this with like-minded people and be safe. We ain't going nowhere.